Hi everyone, Joshua Hanlon here, and today I'm in Portland, Oregon. We're at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, and behind me is the USS Blueback submarine. I'm with John, and he's going to be taking us on a tour of this fascinating submarine and telling us about the history of this sub and why it's important and how it ended up here in Portland. So why don't you go ahead and give us kind of the overview of the history of the sub and how it ended up here.
Okay, thanks Josh. This is the last diesel-electric submarine in the American fleet. There's two ways to get your submarine to move around underwater. One's put a whole bunch of batteries on board and ride around on your batteries. This is the last battery-operated submarine. We have 300 tons of lead-acid batteries down there, and that makes this a very quiet submarine. The new ones that come out all have nuclear power on them. They make steam, they spin turbines. Nobody's ever made a submarine as quiet as these old diesel boats here. And when this one was involved, when it was in service from 1959 to 1990, it was pretty well recognized as just about the quietest submarine out there. We are a class of 3. This is called the barbell class. 580, that's 581 back there. 580 was the barbell, and it looked just like this, battery operated submarine. We're 581, there was another one, 582, the Bonefish, the last 3 diesel electric submarines in the fleet. This one's kind of interesting because all the diesel electrics that came before us all kind of looked like destroyers, knives going through the water. They came along and they said, we are going to start making nuclear power submarines. They're going to have to stay underwater for long periods of time, and we are going to try out some new hull designs. So this one has a hull design called a teardrop hull, and we were the first 3 out there with this teardrop hull. They tried it on a diesel boat, and it worked. Now before this, any submarine like that that had batteries and motor and propeller could do okay on the surface, about 19 miles an hour, but get those submarines underwater and their top speed was about 9. If you ever watched the movies during World War II and these guys are being shot at or they're running around trying to catch somebody, their top speed underwater is about 9. It's not very good if you want to be in today's modern world. So they put the new hull on this one, teardrop hull, and it made a big difference. This one on the surface does about 19, just like everybody else. Underwater, this thing can go 24 miles an hour.
It's actually faster.
Much faster underwater than any of the old World War II diesel boats. This is a diesel boat, but with that new hull back there, it was a marvelous invention. So every submarine after that, all the new submarines, Albacores, they all have this type of hull on them called a teardrop hull, and they're all very, very fast, and they're just a wonderful invention. We got the first ones, and everybody's copied us. This thing was faster underwater than almost anything else out there. Turned out to be very maneuverable and very quiet. These things, I always tell the people on the tour that wave my hand like this and go like this. This is how much this noise this boat makes underwater. Listen carefully. Very quiet submarine.
Yeah.
There's the letter E painted on the front of that because we were a very quiet submarine. The Navy came to the submarine and said, we've got these guys called Navy SEALs. We'd like you to take them somewhere and drop them off. Will you do that? We said, yeah. The SEALs came on board. They sleep up in the torpedo room. I'll show you that here in a little while. They would leave the submarine even though the submarine was 50 feet underwater. But these guys would float to the surface, swim to shore. They'd be gone a day or 2 days, swim back, and we'd leave. We did that for 20 years on this submarine, and we never got caught. That E up there is a Battle Excellence Award that the submarine was given for being super sneaky. So everybody that ever served on this submarine, which is not me by the way, they're very, very proud of that. They get to wear a little emblem, and the submarines get that letter E painted out there.
Yeah, that's a super impressive service history there, and it's just really amazing to see kind of the ways technology changed here with the design of this.
Yeah, and we were the first ones to. Now we can race around underwater, can't go very long. A new nuclear submarine, they go out in the open ocean, and the only reason they ever have to go back in again is one, the crew gives out about 90 days later, And 2, that's about how long the groceries can last. But any one of those new nuclear submarines, if they had those 2 problems solved, they can stay underwater for about 17 years.
Wow.
Now, we can stay out for 90 days, but we can't stay underwater for 90 days. We have to come up to the surface about every 3 days. I'll show you that here in a little while. But we have big diesel engines on board. Their only purpose is to go round and round and make electricity. They make their dynamos, just like Bonneville Dam up the river up there. They go round and round to make electricity. They make a lot of electricity. We could fill up 300 tons of lead acid batteries in about 4 hours. That means for 4 hours, we're up near the surface. We're sticking that big black mast up out of the water. Right behind that black mast, there's a wing. That's where the exhaust smoke comes out. So we intake down that mast with a snorkel valve. You ever hear of a snorkel valve? Anyway, it shuts if it gets wet. That means we can run along. All we're showing is a periscope or 2, that big black mast, but this far out of the water. Do that for 4 hours, run the diesels, and we can fill our batteries up. And then we're good for another 3 days underwater. Now, the world got faster and the world got smaller, so in 1959, when this thing went in the water, the Navy was already designing for new nuclear submarines. And like I said, the new nuclear submarines can stay out for months at a time. So this one was considered at the end of its service back about 1990. They used it to sneak up on other people and practice anti-submarine warfare with. Still a very sneaky submarine, but the world of submarines got faster and much more modern and much more able. The Navy's, I've heard people tell me that we could build a new submarine cheaper than it would take to renovate this one. And the new submarines, their price starts with the letter B,
Right.
okay? But when it was in service, this was the finest submarine out there.
Fantastic. Well, we can start heading on board then and take a closer look kind of inside the sub and more of the technical details.
Good. The submarine has been here since 1994. 1994, OMSI built this new building along the waterfront here. Before that, OMSI was still in Portland, but we were in the parking lot at the Oregon Zoo up there. Now we came here, 94, built that big building, built this pier, and then we had a friend of ours, a guy named Mark Hatfield, senator from the state of Oregon. He called the Navy and said, could we borrow a submarine? And they were very nice about it. They said, we have a cute little submarine. Would that be okay? And we said, yes, that'd be just fine. So in 1994, we brought the submarine in, put in some new doors. You don't have to climb up a vertical hatch like the subsailors do. Brought the submarine down here and tied it up to the pier. This pier floats, and we found out 2 years after we borrowed the submarine how high it can float. These green poles are stuck in the bottom. The pier floats with it. That blue mark on that green pole right there is how high the Willamette River had ever been. Last 100 years, that's the high water mark for the Willamette River. So we thought we'd put in poles about that tall. 2 years later, 1996, it snowed and snowed and snowed and snowed, and then it rained. And this wall of water came down the Willamette River, and all of a sudden the water level went all the way up to that second blue mark up there.
Oh my.
And right above that second blue mark is the old top to that pole. Another 4 inches, and this submarine would have been floating down beyond the mouth of the Columbia River. We came that close to losing it. So as soon as the water went down, we came back and welded some more pole on the top of that. And since 1996, never had another rainstorm like that one.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Keep going then.
come on down. I always warn everybody walking on here, careful going down these stairs. They're steeper than they look. We actually have had people slide to the bottom of this. It's a big surprise. Follow me. Hi there. This is the entrance that we had put in here. This is not how the subsailors got on this submarine. Let me show you the entrance for the subsailors. Everybody from the captain to the cook went up and down that ladder. We lift the hatch out up there, and you can climb up and down here. Everybody, when we're in port, everybody comes to work and goes up and down that ladder. When we head out, there's 85 people on this boat. Everybody has to bring down their clothes, you know, backpack, a gunny bag, bring them down, store it. And just before we leave, we bring about 14,000 pounds of food down here. It's what it takes to feed 85 guys for 90 days. 14,000 pounds, and it all goes up and down that ladder. We open up that hatch because right below that hatch is our mess decks. I'll show you those in a little while. But lots of physical labor on this thing just before we go to sea. We are standing in the officers' wardroom right here. We had a total of 8 officers on this submarine out of a crew of 85. This is the fancy part of the submarine. As you look around here, this is the officer's head. We're kind of full of stuff right now. But that door swings back and there's a bathroom, and in here's a little shower. So this is considered the luxury bathroom on this submarine. Washing over here.
Space is always at a premium on a submarine.
Always on a premium. And another thing was the officers shared in all the shortages we had on this submarine. This submarine was famous for not having enough fresh water. You got a shower on this thing about once every 7 days. That shower would last you 60 seconds. And you didn't get away with anything if your name was Captain So-and-so. You were treated just like everybody else. You ate the same food, and you took the same water shortages in stride.
Is that something that changed with the nuclear submarines, or did that not improve at all?
Absolutely. Actually, when I talk about the shortages and the limitations of this thing, they do not apply to the new submarines. We had big batteries down here that have to have distilled water put in them. Nuclear submarines don't worry about that. They run on straight power coming from a nuclear reactor, and it's, like I said, unlimited electrical power for the next 17 years. Lots of fresh water. We used to take 3 showers a day on the submarine I was on.
Okay.
And nobody said boo. Okay, let me show you this if you want to see a study in economy here. That's the XO stateroom, executive officer. He's the 2nd highest ranking officer down here, and he did not get his own bedroom. If you look in there carefully, you might be able to see how you fold 2 bunk beds out of the walls in there, and that's the trick they produced every night. If your name is Admiral So-and-so and you want to come out and go out on this little submarine, you do not bump the captain. You come in here and you sleep on a bunk right next to the executive officer. There's no luxury at all in this. It's just a flat place to sleep.
Yes, the essentials.
Okay, come on down here. We'll go on in. This is the scullery. It's for service for the officers here. There was a guy here called the steward, the only enlisted guy that was allowed up here on a regular basis. This is the officers' wardroom up here, 8 officers. We always say there's only 2 ways for an enlisted man to get up here. One is to be the steward and do all the dishes and serve all the food. The other one is do something wrong on the submarine. You're going to get yelled at. You get up here, this is called the captain's mast, and you're standing there and the captain's going to start yelling at you. It is not a pleasant thing. That's not a good way to get into the wardroom. Come on in here.
Finally a little more space when you get into this area.
Yeah. This room was where the officers sat. They came here for a number of reasons. You could come down here and study your books, your training, you're doing development of some sort. But probably the best reason to come in here was to eat. This is the dining room for the officers. I'll show you the dining room for the enlisted guys here in a little while. We'd sit here, the captain's up here, executive officers down here, 1, 2, 3 junior officers, 4, 5, 6. They came here, and if we're having a meal, all the food on this submarine is prepared in a galley 1 deck down. I'll show it to you in a little while. Very good food on submarines. I always tell people that come to visit here, the best food in any military, anywhere in the world is found on American submarines. And they do that in particular because we'd really like you to stay. If you're going to volunteer for the Navy, we're going to train you and train you and train you, and you become a very valuable person. And then what can we do to get you to stay in? We'll pay you extra, but the best thing is, I tell you, wonderful food on submarines. We'll just take that as we go around here.
You have to make up for the lack of space in some way.
Lack of
other
space.
Incentives.
Tom Cruise is never going to go by in his F-15, you know? Okay? You're down here. We close that hatch, the one we just looked at, and we stay down here for 90 days. And it's 90 days of almost complete isolation. You're not allowed to send anything out. You might have a wife and kids back home, but the most they're allowed to send you is a familygram, which in those days was a 30-word message that came in as much as once a week. And it was heavily edited. You were allowed to say that it was bad weather, but you can't say your dog died. You are not allowed to put anything bad in those things because you didn't want to inflict it on these guys on the submarine. And we've had people that missed some of those messages, and they missed out on. One guy called his wife home from the pier in Guam and said, "Hello, dear, I'm here." And she said, "What color should we paint the baby's room?" And he said, "What baby? Didn't you get my familygram?" Mm-mm. So
wow.
You can have, message mix-ups down here.
There's a great example I wanted to point out of the design that you were talking about there as it's coming out of the water.
And we look like that. That is an emergency maneuver called emergency blow. And every submarine practices that because we often go down, on this submarine we could go down 700 feet underwater. There's a tremendous difference in the pressure on the outside of the hull between surfaced and 700 feet. We always say it's 44 pounds per square inch per 100 feet. So if you had a square inch of this hull of the submarine and you're down 700 feet, you got 200 and almost 300 pounds per square inch, which is a lot of pressure. So we always say if you're going to get down that deep underwater and you're going to have flooding, and these things do flood from time to time, let's discuss it on the surface. We have some switches in the control room. We blow them. 2,000-pound air blows 500 tons of water out of our ballast tanks, and all of a sudden we weigh 500 tons less than the ocean we displace, and we go to the surface at about 35 miles an hour. We did it once on this submarine from 700 feet underwater, and we're on the surface in 58 seconds. That is a life-saving maneuver. Every American submarine practices that. And depending on who you're talking to, some people say that's the funnest thing I ever did, and other people say scared the heck out of me. But it's something everybody has to practice. That was a shot for a movie called Hunt for Red October. They said that's the USS Houston. No, they didn't. They called it something else. But anyway, that was the USS Houston. And we keep a picture up here on the wall of some guys in Soviet submarines because we were in the movies once. We were in a movie called Hunt for Red October for about 6 seconds. Captain Remius says, "Comrades, we are going to tweak the tail of the Americans, and then we are all going to Cuba." They paid these guys to come down to our submarine, into our torpedo room, put on some fancy Russian uniforms, much fancier than any Russian sailor would ever wear, and acted surprised about going to Cuba. So we were in that movie for about 6 seconds, and we brag it up as much as we can.
I mean, it's an incredible movie. I would take it.
Yeah. And we've been around long enough. We got Jack Lord over here, and the submarine out in Pearl. That looks like Pearl Harbor to me.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. And then I saw the map over here. So is this kind of the general area?
This. Yeah, we show people this. We were built in Pascagoula, Mississippi. The shipyards there, which are still making big ships, but I don't think they make submarines anymore. 1959, we paid $21 million for this thing. They took it out, took it down to the Panama Canal, went through and took it out to San Diego. And there is a red dot on that map for every place this submarine's ever spent the night. It's been here to Portland for something called Fleet Week. It's been as far west as Perth, Australia. It's been as far south as Talcahuano, Chile. that go down to, we have various ways of extending the groceries so we can go out long distance. When we went to Talcahuano, Chile, we didn't just put one level of cans on the floor, canned food. We put 2 levels. I'll maybe show you that a little later, but walking around this submarine, when you're walking on 2 high number 10 cans of food, it's kind of like this, okay?
Very cramped again, yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fascinating, yeah.
We actually had surgery on this submarine. We had a guy on board called the corpsman. Every American submarine has a guy who's a corpsman. He's trained in underwater medicine, and he's very good. We get very good people to run these submarines. He was good at underwater medicine. If you broke something, you know, sunburn in Pearl Harbor, whatever it was, he was good for that. But one time we were out underwater, we'd been out for a couple of months, and he had a real problem. Some guy came to him and says, my tummy hurts. They laid him down. This is the surgical table, by the way, because it's the biggest table on the submarine. Laid him down right there. Doc inspected him and said, it's your appendix. We need to take it out. And so they did. Call the captain. Tell the captain we want to go down 600 feet underwater. On the surface, this thing kind of rocks and rolls. 200 feet down, it's kind of like this, but at 600 feet, it's like walking into a church. It's nice and quiet. If you're going to do surgery, I recommend 600 feet down.
It's a real pro tip, I'll remember that.
Yeah. They laid him down, they turned on that. This is not the dining room table light, it is surgery. And they took out his appendix, and he lived. He was kind of grateful.
I can imagine, yeah.
Let me, that display on the back, most people just pay no attention to it, but any subsailor likes to look at that. Everybody who ever comes down to serve on a submarine is expected to qualify on that submarine. And that means if you're the captain, you're anybody else on here, as soon as you walk on board the first time, we're going to hand you a pile of paper that says sign here, sign here, sign here. There are 34 different systems on this submarine. Every one of them, mast and antennas, steering and diving, fresh water, salt water, high pressure air, low pressure air, torpedo tubes, navigation, everything. Every one of these 34 different systems has power supplies and big power banks and valves and places where things can go wrong. Every one of those 34 different things has things that can kill you. On a surface ship, when a surface ship begins to sink, you can run for the lifeboats. On a submarine, when a submarine begins to sink, it just takes everybody with you. And that's happened enough that everybody on a submarine knows that. And so when we come down, we want you to be able to single-handedly save this submarine. We are going to hand you all those papers and say, learn all these systems. And by the time you can do all of that, we can walk you through this submarine and say, behind this panel, what's up there? What color is that handle? What is it good for? Well, sir, that's how you hand pump up the number 2 periscope. What's this good for? Well, it's how you drain the starboard navigation, whatever it is. Everything that can go wrong on this submarine, every single sailor down here is required to know how to fix it. You do that, we'll give you 9 months on this submarine. Some submarines are bigger, more complex. They get a little more time. On this one, it was 9 months. And if at the end of that 9 months, you can walk through this submarine, answer all the questions, and completely impress everybody that talks to you, we will have the captain pin a medal on your uniform, right there where it says United States. The gold one on the left is for the officers. I think it's about 3 times harder for the officers. But even an enlisted guy gets the silver one on the right. And once that's pinned on you, you're proud of that for the rest of your life. You do everything you can to bring that up. And if 2 subsailors ever get together, the first question is, are you qualified? And if you are qualified, these guys are going to talk. And if they're not, one guy's going to kind of go like, well, let's talk about something else. Okay? Very big deal in a submarine sailor's life. Come on in, okay?
Come on in. We have 2 people coming in.
Hi, you guys.
Hello, everybody.
There's a film crew happening. They're making a movie for a YouTube video.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about this little wardroom right here. Well, let me see. I'm going to take you out of here, and we're going to go. I'm going to show you radio and our office. I tell everybody, this is the smallest office you ever saw in your life. If you'd like to learn how to type a typewriter like this, with your elbows tucked in, this is a good place to do it, okay? Everybody ready?
Absolutely.
Follow me.
We'll go in there and just a little bit. First of all, we're gonna sit.
And over here is radio. We can go in here. Sound effects. So this is radio. This would be a very protected place on the submarine when we were out at sea. All kinds of secret things are going through here. The radio men had secret clearances, but there was times that things happened that nobody was supposed to know that. The radio men would tell the captain and we'd go do something. But there were times you better knock on that door, because at times they kept a loaded pistol in here. You're not supposed to play around with it in here if you're not welcome. We had, well, that's mostly storage right now. That used to be radio equipment that we would take to sea with us when we had communications experts. We called them spooks down here, but they would load up. The submarine did a lot of secret stuff in secret parts of the world that we probably shouldn't talk about. But we would carry the secret equipment in here. There's a little bit of a storage spot.
Is a lot of that history public knowledge today, or is a lot of that still kept hidden by the government?
Kept in.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got a guy looking at that kind of stuff online, going through the old logs that are just being released now, but they're only releasing them a few years at a time. And we're finding out like when they went and where they went, but not very much about secret communications.
So that's very different from maybe a lot of the World War II era kind of museum submarines, where there's a lot more known about what they did compared to a Cold War era submarine like this.
And even those guys, I've talked to those guys as they come through here on the tour, and they go, we didn't tell them everything. There's a lot of stuff that you probably don't need to know. Mm-hmm. Okay? I could say we could go over there and see the office, but that's like looking inside a garbage can. It's not very big. And one or two people. The most important thing that happened in there is that's where we kept your pay records. You always wanted to make sure that was up to date.
Absolutely.
Okay?
So I see some kind of more modern computers and technology set up in here. So how is this space used today?
We are a ham radio club here. We have guys who come down and transmit from here a couple of times during the week, and they transmit using antenna set up from our mast and antennas outside, and they have a wonderful time doing it. There are people that are thrilled to be able to say that they talk to an American submarine, and this is an American submarine. We get cards back from people all over the world of where we are. I think this is us here, W7SUB, and they transmit during the middle of the day, during the middle of the week.
Yeah, that's really neat. It's always cool to see on different museum ships how these radio spaces have been repurposed for things like that and kind of still have a life today. That's really cool.
Yeah. So in real life, very secret place. Right now it's just kind of a nice place to hang out to. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're heading forward. Now this is, I've got it rigged for red here. We're showing people what it's like. How are you coming out with the filming? Can you still see here?
Mostly, but
okay.
It might be better to switch over if we can.
I can do that. Just a second here.
There we go. Perfect.
Very good.
Less movie, accurate, but a little easier to see what's going on. But the red definitely gives the classic submarine movie vibe.
Well, we always say that the wardroom we just stepped out of is early Winnebago. Everything else is real submarine. It starts looking like a real submarine from here on out. Everything up here, remember I said you had to know what every valve was. what it all did, what to do if this thing starts leaking. You have to know where to go over here. The thing about this submarine is just a little more realistic, perhaps, than others. We had the last captain of the submarine come down here in 1994. The submarine was decommissioned in 1990, so he must have done something else for 4 years. But in 1994, we parked this thing here at this pier, and the captain came down for the last, he'd see his submarine. He walked on board. The Navy had lent this thing to us, but they had cleaned it up. They had drained all the hydraulic fluid and all the oil and all the everything that made this thing an authentic submarine. They cleaned it up and got it out of here. And the captain walked on board and he goes, "This just doesn't look right." "Captain, what's wrong?" "This thing, we had cans hanging from the pipes and we had linen wrapped around the oil, everything down here, because this was a very leaky submarine. Every time the periscopes went up and down, they leaked. We had to put linen on the risers." We said, "Captain, we'll take care of that for you, okay?" And we did. We came around and you see the tin cans and all the, and we went to somebody that had been on this thing, said, "Yeah, this is pretty much realistic." So we called the captain back and he said, "You got it right, that's the way it looked." So here you are, a little more realistic of a submarine.
I love that. It's neat to see kind of the little tweaks and things that the sailors would have had to do, because yeah, just stuff changes while you're on the submarine in there and you have to adapt.
Yes, yes. This right here is a big old gyro compass. People ask me all the time, how do you find your way around underwater? Because we don't think you have any way of navigating underwater. We don't. Here's how you navigate a submarine underwater when it's deep, deep, deep. You can't stick up any masts or antennas. We know where we were when we submerged. We got the satellites telling you were right here on the face of the earth when you submerged. From then on, all we have is these gyros on board telling us how we moved. A gyro compass will say, "We know you've gone 25 feet forward and 3 feet left." Well, we've got a map platform out here. This thing feeds into there and a little light follows us around on the face of the earth. It's getting input from these gyros, and we have either 2 or 3 gyros online all the time using 2 or 3 different technologies. And we want to make absolutely sure where we are underwater. And if we can't see, you can't see out of a submarine. And we found out that underwater mountains don't make any noise. So, and there have been American submarines that ran into mountains underwater, and that makes a big mess. So any submarine has master navigators on board who know exactly how to make all this stuff work. They spent a lot of money to make these things work. There's a degaussing platform. Before you go to sea, they run a submarine through big loops of wire out there, and they just, well, we call it degaussing, but really it's irradiating the submarine with lots and lots of voltage so that these things are accurate for the next 90 days or so. Everything you see here, back here is what we call IC alley for all the electrical controls on the submarine. As we go forward, this is going to be the attack center. This is going to be the part where the fire controlmen were in charge of tracking targets. So everything from here on forward, all this equipment is used for aiming and firing, we call shooting submarines. You try not to say fire down here unless you mean fire, okay? Mm-hmm. Just the way we never say we sink, we submerge. Okay, remember that, we submerge. So let me bring you up here and show you some of this stuff.
Now, does this represent the submarine kind of as when it was retired from the Navy, since it had kind of a several decade long service? Was there a lot of this technology and equipment that would have changed over that period, or?
I'm not sure. On my submarine, we went through 2 changes of the fire control system. This is an old, I believe it's a 101 system. Maybe somebody's going to watch this video and go, "Oh my God, there's a so-and-so." I don't know exactly what, I've been told it's a 101. And remember, this is a 1959 submarine. It would surprise me if this had not been updated at least once before 1990.
Sure.
But everything here, everything's analog. There's no, I think in 1959, they hadn't even really started building transistors yet. The idea of a digital anything was not really on the boards back then. Everything, these things are just complete big, there's dials and synchros and servos and graded motors that go around this far on so much electricity. And everything down there it's all interconnected and going back and forth, would scare the heck out of any technician these days because nobody knows how to do this anymore. When I got to the submarine, I got used to pulling out a circuit board and plugging a new one in. Did that fix it? That's called swapology. And that's an awful lot of troubleshooting on modern American submarines, everywhere, and not just the submarines. But this one, synchros and servos, graded electric motors, just incredibly amount of mechanical stuff. And we can't even find anybody that knows how to repair this stuff anymore. So, come on in, I'll show you how we drive a submarine. This is one of the first submarines that had a unified control center. This is up here. In the old days, World War II, Cary Grant movies, they'd run up there and they'd look out the periscopes and they'd run down here and they'd run down to the bottom to fire torpedoes. And anyway, everything takes place up here. When we go out to sea, there's just 6 people up here. Most of them are officers. There's a guy who's standing here, he's the officer of the deck. He's in charge of the whole submarine anytime the captain happens to be off somewhere else. Anytime the captain wants to take over, he just walks up here and says, "Captain has the con," and believe me, the captain he can do anything he wants. But when he's off, officer of the deck here, some other people, this is the navigator back here, usually a quartermaster. That's where we keep track of where we are underwater. And that's where a little light would show up on the screen to show us where we were. We have a guy here called the Chief of the Watch. He's in charge of the weight and the balance of the submarine. He has control of all the masts, all the periscopes, all the electronic countermeasure antennas going up. All of that gets raised and lowered right here. Snorkel control, the head valve, the induction mast where air gets in to flow back to the diesels. That's all controlled from right here. There is pressure in the main air tanks outside. We have 3,000 pound air in big air blast flask outside. We keep track of that here. Here's the trim system. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tanks inside the pressure hull that we use to keep track of the balance of the submarine. People ask me, how about buoyancy down here? And the answer to that is we always want to be neutrally buoyant. We want the submarine to be able to coast to a stop underwater and just hang there. If the submarine is positively buoyant, it'll start to float up, and that can get you in real trouble. One of these submarines doing an unexpected surface, uncontrolled surface, right in the middle of somebody else's fleet really gets you talked about. You can get into serious trouble if you're positively buoyant. On the other hand, if you're negatively buoyant, that's dangerous too. If a submarine just naturally wants to sink and you forgot to do things like charge the battery up or the nuclear reactors scrammed back there. We had one called the Thresher that lost its nuclear reactor and sank, and it killed everybody on board because it was negatively buoyant. So we try not to be negatively buoyant on these things as well. We always want to be neutrally buoyant, and that's why this guy, the officer, the Chief of the Watch, is always interested in the trim of the system. When we dive underwater, we have to make sure that all the hull openings are shut. To go underwater, we've got big ballast tanks around the outside of the pressure hull. They're inside that hull you saw outside. We're a double-hulled submarine, and in between the outer hull, which is mostly good for banging into things, and the inner hull, which you can see kind of goes up here, goes over the top and comes down the other side. That is 1.5 inches of HY80 steel. And even though it's only 1.5 inches thick, it's good for 80,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. I don't think any American submarine has ever been lost because its hull failed. Every single time it was a through hull fitting that failed. A pipe we brought on board to bring in salt water or cooling water, they fail, and we have lost submarines, especially during World War II, because of that. So this Chief of the Watch right here is in charge of communication with the crew. We're about to dive. It's a two-part process. Somebody picks up this thing and says, dive, dive. And then the diving officer reaches up here and pulls this diving alarm. I'll play it for you. I hope you can tone it down at a later date, because here's what it sounds like.
You're not going to miss that.
No. And we also record that so it goes through the microphone to everybody on the system. And when people hear that, they know the submarine, which has been on the surface, is about to go like this and go underwater. We have two young guys driving this submarine. I said there's about 6 people up here. Officer of the deck, navigator, chief of the watch. Here's a guy called the diving officer. On every submarine I was ever on, which was one, he was a mean old man. There's 2 young kids here. This is the stern planes, and this is the fairwater planes and the rudder. So between these 2 guys, they're acting like the pilot and the co-pilot of an airplane. But you can fly an airplane with one person. I don't care what airplane it is. Any submarine is going to have a guy sitting there for the stern planes, a guy sitting here for the fairwater planes and the rudder, and a guy sitting in between them who's going to say, I told you to come right to 320, you're at 318, get over there, 320, rah, rah, rah. Mostly you get yelled at for about 6 hours at a time up here on this submarine. Okay? Everything you see up here is, you might say, instrument flight rated. There's no outside windows anywhere on this submarine. The only way to see outside is to look through a periscope. If you turn around, you can see the number 2 scope. See that little eyepiece right there? Come on over on this side, right there. Go ahead and take a look through that.
It's a great view of the city.
Wonderful view.
Yeah.
We always say that's about an $850,000 pair of binoculars. There's another periscope up here, right there, and that is the high power one. You probably notice a little more magnification. Mm-hmm. In the old days, when the submarine was in operation, you could spin these things around. You'd bring the wings down, and you could spin around, look in any different direction. And if you were done being on the surface, you just simply lock them down. There's a handle up here that says raise and lower. You'd say lower, and the periscopes go down, clear this area out. They go into a hull housing down inside the submarine, another deck down. So when we're underwater, we don't have these 2 things sticking up out here. You're on watch down here for about 6 hours at a time. This was a 3-watch submarine. I've been on a newer submarine and found out that it's 3 8-hours. So it's just like working at a plywood mill or something like that. But on this thing, it was, you sleep for 6 hours, you go on watch for 6 hours, and you clean for 6 hours. You do your work for 6 hours. It's an 18-hour day. And there are times when we go out, and you go out in the ocean and you're out for 5 or 6 or 7, 8 days, and sometimes the only way you know what time it is on the submarine is you come up here to the control room and it's rigged for red. That means it's sometime between sundown at that particular piece of the ocean you're in and sun up the next morning. We found out that these optical periscopes on these submarines don't work when the lights are on. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you come to the surface and look outside. You want to make sure nobody's going by in a big cargo freighter, and you try looking outside with the white lights on, you can't see anything. So the process is, as soon as the sun goes down outside, we might be in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the navigator knows when local sundown is around here and says, mark sundown, rig for red. And when we do that, somebody goes click, click, and now it's red light down here. About 10 minutes of this, we can go to the surface in an absolutely moonless sky, dark, dark, dark outside, you can look through that periscope and it's like a beautiful movie screen. You can see everything. Turn the white lights on and you're blind. So it's standard procedure on this submarine and all the other submarines that have optical periscopes to run rig for red at night. I've been down in the crew's mess where maybe the officer of the deck wants to run down and get a cup of coffee. He puts on red sunglasses that just looks really funny. And he walks down there and he gets his cup of coffee and comes back and takes the red sunglasses off, goes back to work.
Yeah, one thing I noticed here that's really neat is how many of the lights and things still work on the panels. So it really kind of feels immersive when you're walking through here. And I'm sure that takes a lot of work to kind of keep everything operational like that.
We're very lucky about this. Nobody knows how to repair submarines anymore. If these things stopped working, we'd really have a hard time figuring somebody else that can learn how to fix it. Nobody we know can fix this thing. We always tell all the little kids on this thing, if we break the submarine, the Navy says we have to give it back. Okay, their kids are pretty good about that. We have had, people got very, 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 very seasick up here. Submarines, when they leave port, when they come back to port, they have to be on the surface. And that means you can look outside and see things, but it also means we are a very round submarine. Any kind of waves out there and this thing starts going back and forth and back and forth. I show people how we dive a submarine. I'll show you guys how we dive a submarine. We leave port. Let's say we're leaving San Diego. We're on the surface. The Navy says you can't dive your submarine unless the water underneath you is 600 feet deep. Well, you can go quite a bit out of San Diego before it gets 600 feet deep. And if you're on the surface until then, this gets very tiring. We're just hoping. The only solution we have for this is to go underwater. Well, we have to get out in 600 feet deep water. So we're waiting for the navigator to say, officer of the deck, we crossed the 100 fathom curve, sir, we can submerge. He will eventually say that, and then everybody up here goes, ah, thank you. Officer of the deck turns to this guy, the diving officer, between these two young kids here, and he says, diving officer, submerged submarine, make your depth 250 feet. He says, submerged submarine, ice here, 250 feet. He turns to the chief of the watch here and he says, chief of the watch, announce dive, dive. Well, that's where we pick it up and go dive, dive, and then we run that diving alarm. These two guys push forward on the steering wheel, and that depth gauge and that depth gauge start clicking. We were at 58 feet periscope depth for this thing, just the periscope and the induction mast sticking up. And now we go like this. We go underwater, and I understand that people who watch a submarine submerge, it's a very scary thing. You see a big black warship out there, and all of a sudden it goes underwater, and everybody's going, where'd he go? Where'd he go? It can make you pretty nervous. We go down, down, down till it gets about 250 feet. Then the diving officer says, okay, level off, level off. That's good. Officer of the deck, we're steady at 250 feet, sir. Officer of the deck says, good, thank you. And that means from then on, no more rocking and rolling, no more upset tummies. Any subsailor that gets a chance to go underwater on a submarine likes it. We love being underwater. Okay?
And was 250 feet kind of standard depth for most of the time if it was underwater, or did it just change space?
It's what I remember about diving. It might have been 200. This submarine had a test depth of 700 feet. And now we didn't spend a whole lot of time at 700 feet. We didn't especially like it because we know that if we had a leak, things happen fast. But we didn't, this submarine actually spent a lot of time snorkeling, close enough to the surface, stick up the periscopes and the induction mast and going along like that. Actually, this submarine, they tell me, set a new record because they pull out of Yokosuka, Japan, and made a direct steaming on the surface transit to San Diego. And at that time, nobody had gone that far on the surface. all I can say, the guys that were down here must have had really tough tummies, because that's a lot of seasickness as far as I can see. I don't know how long it took, but top speed back in those days was 5 or 6 knots on the surface. So divide that distance by 6 and it's a lot of hours.
Absolutely.
Maybe I could show you, I don't know how interested they are, but this is called a bathymetograph. We are interested in the temperature of the water at each depth. And we found out that there is a level in the water down underneath the surface. Surface water has been warmed by the sun. Deep water just has the same temperature as everything else all the way to the bottom of the ocean. But there is a level in between called a thermocline, and that thermocline is a good thing to hide behind. We found out that sound waves coming from the surface go down to the thermocline and are reflected up again. If we're underneath that thermocline, we make noise, it comes up and hits the thermocline and is reflected down again. There have been times, submarine I was on one time, come up and we came up to the surface and looked around, and we didn't think there was anybody up there, and there was an aircraft carrier and 2 fishing boats within about rock throwing distance. We didn't know it because our thermocline reader wasn't working at the time.
Oh, wow.
So every time this submarine dived, they made an attempt to put in a new fresh piece of paper and make sure the pen is working. And that is a record of the depth and the temperature of the water. And what we're looking for is a jog one way or the other. That says the water temperature changed right there. We can expect to go on the other side of that barrier and be hidden from anybody who stayed on the first side.
That's really interesting, yeah.
Thermograph. Okay. We have emergency override things. This guy's got the rudder. He's supposed to go back and forth, which is under hydraulic control, but hydraulics has been known to fail, and when that happens, this guy's running the rudder. That's the emergency rudder override, and that is a manual. Somehow they take that action, and it goes all the way to the back of the boat and makes that big rudder back there go back and forth. That's the emergency rudder down here. Everything we do down here is 1, 2, or 3 backups, just to make sure. People say, why do we have 2 periscopes? Because one might break. Everything has a 2 down here, including every hull fitting. Every time a pipe comes in from the outside, there's one valve that shuts it at the surface, and then there's another valve inside. And either one of those valves we can close and stop the water coming in from that. That's an emergency service. We do the save the submarine. Every submarine has what they call 2 valve integrity from anything coming in from the outside.
That makes sense. You want to know that there's backups if something goes wrong.
And things can go wrong down here in a matter of 10 seconds. That's why everybody's qualified. You're expected to be able to save the submarine. The people who are the most qualified are the officers, because they've got to be able to keep their head in times of great danger and great pressure. Those guys, I told you, they take longer to qualify down here, and they do a world more training. We drive the submarine, but somebody's got to know how to drive it intelligently in time of war, in time of battle. How do you approach? How do you sneak up on somebody? What's the capabilities of that target out there? We know exactly what it is. We know the hull number on that Russian submarine, but how do we approach it? Does he have a trailing wire behind him? Is the captain any good? We have to know all of that stuff. And they teach the officers that. They send them to training, submarine war college, and all kinds of stuff. They spend a lot of time. So we always kind of respect those guys. And these days, women. Men and women are serving on submarines these days. Okay?
Yeah.
I have not bored you guys yet. Follow me down.
Absolutely not.
We're heading for the torpedo room now. We're going to go down one deck. Down at the bottom of this ladder is sonar. Sonar is where we listen to things. And you can stop in there if you like.
Perfect.
Follow me down. We had a guy called the messenger. He had to run errands and things for these guys up here. he was properly trained when he could bring up 3 full coffee cups in each hand.
That's an impressive feat.
Yes. So, this is sonar. Now, sonar is very important on submarines because we can't see outside. We have to rely very much on what we hear outside. And I can tell you that there are times when you can hear something, you know the direction it is, you'll know exactly the bearing that it's on, but is it 2 miles or is it 20 miles? You can't tell. Water has very good sound passing qualities, and if something's out there, it could be 2.5 times over the horizon. You can still hear it. Something's going chugga, chugga, chugga. Oh, that's a very important, whatever it is. How far away is it? Don't know, Captain. We'd have to run a plot on this thing. And then you get into a very complicated trigonometric solving where you turn the submarine, you go this direction, and you get a bearing on the target. Turn the submarine, go this direction, get a bearing on the target. Now, mostly what I'm talking about is wartime war shots. You want what we call a firing solution on these torpedoes. But even down here on the water, what is that thing? Well, it's off in that direction and it sounds like an ore carrier. Yeah, it sounds a double twin blades and there, one's got a nick in it. We think we know which one it is. So it's very important that you figure out where things are underwater. The only way we have of finding out what's out there is to listen to it. And so sonar. This had a very good sonar on this thing, but modern submarines much, much, much better. Any submarine has the ability to go active or stay passive. Active is the old days of going ping. Go ping to bounce back and say, oh, sir, that's 482 yards. Well, anytime you go ping, you're going to tell everybody for 100 miles where you are, who you are, and what you're up to. So going ping on a modern American submarine is very bad form. I've seen where they say, well, give me 1 ping for range. We don't even do that. I think I was on my submarine 3 years before we finally went active, and I don't remember the provocation. But we don't use active sonar on these submarines. We don't go ping. But passive sonar, we paid dozens and tens of millions of dollars for the sonar equipment to listen with. This is a 1959 through 90 system, but the new submarines coming out, this is all digital. It just looks like a flight control station at O'Hare. It just, everything in here is digital. And these guys are highly trained, and they work hand in hand with the people up in the control room. If they say, we have a contact at 180, and those guys up there, and we're near the surface, we'll look it down 180. Oh, I have it, it is a so-and-so, and it's out there so far. Anytime we're in a wartime situation, these guys are going to tell us where the targets are. We're going to try and look for them up there, sneak up on them, get within firing range with a good firing solution. They do a lot of training of us down here to teach these guys how to approach in a wartime situation. And sonar is just about the most important part of this. These guys, they can tell just by listening. They can say, well, the blade rate of 84, turns a minute, and it's got a twin screw, and I think one of the screws has got a nick out of it, and we determined this to be a car carrier coming from Japan. They can probably name the car carrier. So these guys go through a lot of training. They get a lot of fancy equipment. And the funny thing is, the new submarines that are all missile boats, the Ohio class, they train those sonar guys up just as much as they do on any fast attack. Everybody's got to be able to do a good job in a wartime situation, no matter what submarine you're on.
So the goal with that would be to avoid having to surface and use those periscopes to kind of visually see and identify while you're still underwater.
Yeah, yeah. And you can hear an awful lot farther than you can see. We often track targets down here that are 20,000, 30,000 yards. And there's 2,000 yards in a mile, a nautical mile. So something could be, and we always tell everybody, if you stand at the edge of the ocean and look at this horizon, it's 7.5 miles out. So if I said we were shooting at something 2.5 times over the horizon, you kind of get the idea of how far we can reach with one of these submarines down here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 2 or 3 guys in here at a time, and if you get a contact that's important, you're going to have one of the officers come down here leaning over your shoulder going, "What do you got, Jonesy? What's going on here?" So it does kind of happen like it does in the movies. Very, very high pressure job down here. As they say, most of the time you're bored out of your mind, and 10% of the time you're scared to death. Okay?
Absolutely. How long did you say the crew would serve at a time on here?
Well, it's a 6-hour watch. So each 18-hour day, you're down here for 6 hours. And then, like I said, 6 hours sleeping, 6 hours working. Maybe you're doing preventive maintenance, or you're washing or cleaning up. 6 hours at a time. If you're not lucky, you're not in 3-section watch, you're in 2-section watch, which is, the code name is port and starboard. And it means you work hard for 6 hours, and then you get 6 hours off for sleeping, for eating, for washing, for keeping up on your maintenance, anything like that. And then you come back and do that for 6 hours again and again and again. And this submarine often went out for 90 days at a time. So the idea of spare time down here sometimes is sort of a bad joke.
It's an intense schedule.
Yes, very intense. Want to see the torpedo room?
Absolutely.
Follow me.
You can't come on a submarine without seeing the
No.
torpedoes.
Kind of like if you're playing hide and seek and you're hiding in the corner.
We'll be there in just a little while. The showers are on the right, crew showers, 2 nice showers, and on the left is the crew's head. That's the only bathroom on board for the enlisted guys. I guess you would call that technically a 4-holer. You're not allowed to use that bathroom until you've had about a half hour of instruction. Those toilets are available underwater. We go down 600, 700 feet underwater. You can still use the toilets down here. Without that half-hour instruction, though, you can get in serious trouble. The trouble goes like this. You get in there, open the valve. You missed the sign on the door out here. It says, "Don't come in." We blow the sanitary tanks, and if you're here when we're doing that and you mistakenly open that valve, you get a, shall we say, a column.
Oh.
And it makes a mess.
I can imagine.
Follow me. We're in the torpedo room. This is about as far forward as we can go on the submarine. If you look down the torpedo tube up there, there's an outer door. That is the outer door, the very farthest point forward on this submarine. We offer a tour down here on Sunday mornings called the Tech Tour. Those people can go anywhere they want on the submarine. They pay a little bit extra for that. One time we had a guy that said, "I'd like to go out to the end of that torpedo tube." And we said, "Go right ahead. Sure, have a good time." Once you get out there, do not open that outer door. That outer door is the only thing holding back the Willamette River. And right now we're about 8 feet underwater. Okay.
That's crazy. So he crawled to the end of the tube
He
there?
just wanted to do it.
Oh my.
Sometimes I get people down here and I say, "This happened on my submarine. Could this possibly be true?" Because I didn't see it. I wasn't there at the time. The guy that did it and 4 other people who watched him do it swear it happened. He was a thin, wiry torpedo man, and he was out at the end of that torpedo tube. He'd gone into that torpedo tube head first. His job was to wash out the inside of the tube because we just shot a saltwater slug out of there. And he was head that way in that torpedo tube. Somebody took an air hose, 100-pound air hose, opened it and threw it into that torpedo tube, and it's in there going like this. And he went into that tube head first, and he came out of that tube head first. And that's a 21-inch tube right there. To this day, I don't know whether that's possible. 4 people standing right there swear it happened. He swore it happened. I still don't know if I believe it. The torpedoes that we have down here actually used to be on the submarine at various times. In 1959, when we went out to sea for the first time, we were still using World War II submarines. Torpedoes. There's a Mark 14 right there, Mark 14. These torpedoes were famous in World War II for missing. If you've ever seen the World War where the ship goes like this and 2 tracks go over here, those are Mark 14s. They also, if you managed to hit somebody, they were famous. They'd bang into the enemy ship, back up, apologize, and sink. Not a very good torpedo. We finally figured out what the problem was, something to do with the exploders, and we did end up, doing okay in World War II, but not much thanks to the Mark 14. They came along with a Mark 37 a few years later. I think that's a 1950s torpedo. We had a few of them down here too. That's a pretty good torpedo, but the one I have my hand on over here is indeed the world's finest torpedo. This is called a Mark 48. We were lent this torpedo in 1994. We're very grateful because this is a $3.5 million torpedo. This torpedo is in use in the US Navy right now. They've got a newer model called Advanced Capability 48, ADCAP. But this one right here at the time was the world's finest torpedo. It has 650 pounds of explosives in it. Not anymore, but in the old days. 650 pounds. Back here was something even more dangerous, 42 pounds of propellant. If it had a gas tank, it'd be gasoline. The propellant actually is something called Auto 2 fuel. And if you want to scare the heck out of a submarine torpedoman, just tell him his Auto 2 fuel is leaking out of his torpedo. Because if that ever gets lit, there's absolutely no way to put it out. The only thing we can do is eject the torpedo and hope it goes away. So, this torpedo had a range of over 20 miles, and when I say over 20 miles, I mean that's as far as they're willing to admit, 20 miles. But these torpedoes over here were lucky to go 2 or 3. These over here, you had to point the whole submarine in the right direction to hit somebody. Miss a little bit, and like I said, they miss. But this one, you can have a target over there and shoot it off in that direction, and you still sink them.
Oh, wow.
This thing, one, has a pretty good brain in it. We have a sound recording of every enemy vessel on the face of the earth. We will determine who it is, and then we load that sound profile into the brain of that torpedo. That is a Kirov super cruiser out there, whatever, and it sounds like kachuka, kachuka, kachuka. The torpedo will know that. We pull the trigger, eject the torpedo, and it takes off, and it has a search pattern. If it can't find it on its own, this is also a wire guide torpedo. There's 20 miles of copper wire between here and the back of that torpedo. Here's a little bit of that copper wire. It's not a high transmission rate, but it's enough that the submarine torpedo can tell us, I can't find him, where'd he go? And it's enough for us to see what the torpedo sees. And if he's going this way, and we can say, he turned left, go left. We can turn this thing around. It's called a wire guide torpedo. And when this thing finally finds the target, it does a pretty good job. The old days, these torpedoes would bang into the enemy ship, blow up, and did a pretty good job of sinking things. They found an even better way to do it. With 650 pounds of explosives on this thing, the torpedo comes up next to the target and dives under. And as it passes underneath, it goes bang. And it just simply blows a big old hole in the ocean. And whatever we were shooting at starts out above the hole, falls in the hole, and is never seen again. I've had guys down here on aircraft carriers that say, can't sink us, but other people that know these torpedoes say, don't try. Okay, we own most of the aircraft carriers. We wouldn't ever want to sink one, but that's a very good torpedo right there.
That's a really interesting kind of design philosophy difference there. Like instead of the aim being like a hole in the ship, it's just create a hole in the water for the ship to
ship will fall into.
There's
a picture of one of our American destroyers. We lent out long enough to sink it for somebody else. It had a torpedo, a 48 go off underneath it. It's got about 30 seconds left to live. That is a very big ship, and one torpedo put that thing on the bottom. We know because we saw it happen. Okay?
Now, if you can, take us through kind of the torpedo kind of firing process and kind of how this worked down here.
First of all, we bring the torpedoes on board when we're back in home port. We bring them down above that exit sign. There's that's called the forward escape trunk, but it's also big rollers up there to bring the torpedoes in. We bring a big old ramp up out of the floor to touch that lower where the exit sign is. We are scared to death of these torpedoes. They come down, we treat them very, very gently. It takes us 2 hours to bring each torpedo down, lay it down, and tie it down. And then we go on to the next one. We never rush this. We can bring a total of 22 torpedoes on board, but most of the time we try and go out to sea with a few less. We tie them down. We always have torpedoes in those torpedo tubes. There's 6 torpedo tubes up there. On this submarine, the torpedo tubes point straight ahead, and that means that this is an old submarine. It was designed for these Mark 14s, where you had to aim the submarine in the right direction. As soon as they started making those and they made these Mark 48s, all the new modern submarines, the nose is up here, but there's a torpedo tubes on the right side and on the left side, starboard and port, and you can shoot a torpedo out of each one of them going in 2 different directions and sink one target. They're maneuverable, just like this one. The firing process, we already have torpedoes in the tubes. Especially the wire guide torpedoes, we have wire that comes out of the back. We close the door, the inner door up there, we lead that wire in and make sure it's connected to our fire control computers up there. And then to shoot one of these torpedoes, you always have the inner and the outer door shut on this thing. So that one is not regular, this one over. But over here on the right, it says war shot loaded. That one is ready. To fire a torpedo, the first thing you do is flood the torpedo. You let salt water in from outside to go around the torpedo. Now the torpedo to the torpedo tube, there's only about 1/8 of an inch crack all the way around it. But for purposes, you have to get the salt water in there. Then when we have a firing solution up there from the fire control out of the sonar, we will say we have a firing solution. Ready, tube 2. Tube 2, one of those up there. They will come down and they will start the gyro in the torpedo spinning. The torpedo always has to have a gyro working there. It has to know movement and right side up. So we get that spinning. That takes a moment or two to get that going. And then they say, flood the tube and open the outer doors. Well, then we open the outer doors. That door will swing open out there. There is an interlock between the inner and the outer doors. It makes sense. You're never going to want the inner and the outer door open at the same time. So once this inner door is shut and locked, then we can open the outer door. We do that either override here or up in the control room. Open the outer door. Make sure that we have good communication with the torpedo through this wire right here. The torpedo is spinning, it's answering maneuvers, we're talking to it, and then they just simply say match bearings and shoot. You never say fire unless you mean the fire, okay? Match bearings and shoot, and then we eject these torpedoes with 2,000-pound air. This torpedo weighs 2 tons, and yet when we eject it, we pull the trigger, This thing comes out of the end of the tube, a 20-foot, 1-foot tube, going 40 miles an hour. So everybody on the whole submarine knew we pulled that trigger because the whole thing shakes back down here. You shoot a 2-ton torpedo at 40 miles an hour, you know it. Then we close the outer door and drain the tube, open the inner door, slide a new torpedo in. You see how we slide the torpedoes around. Everything's under hydraulic control. There's the hydraulic ram. Here is a, let me scoot past you here. A valve like this. This one's for something else, but these valves are used to slide the torpedo tube forward and into a tube. The days of having to be able to bench press a torpedo are over with. We're very grateful for that. These things weigh 2 tons and we just move them. But from the time you eject the last torpedo, you drain the tube, you open the inner door, you slide a new torpedo in, hook it up, close the door, attach the wire, flood it, and get ready to pull that trigger again, 2.5 minutes. These guys are wonderfully trained, sort of like quick draw down here. And we carry 6 loaded tubes and we can reload any other one of them in another 2.5 minutes. So if we have to, we can shoot out a lot of torpedoes. In this day and age, it's very rare to shoot more than 1 torpedo, because 1 torpedo will do it. And we would much rather shoot out a torpedo, we would go very slowly, looking around, finally acquire the target, go into high speed and acquire, and sink it, than just start shooting, bang, 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 making all kinds of noise, telling everybody where we are, and maybe miss. So the new way is get 1 very, very expensive, intelligent torpedo, program it correctly, let it shoot outside, take off, and then sometimes this submarine just turns around and heads for home. It might be 2 hours between the time you pull the trigger and the time somebody says we have a hit. Because this thing might float along, maybe doing 5 knots out there until it acquires. If we can't find it, here we are talking to it. Hey buddy, he's over there, go over there. And then when this thing finally shifts into high gear and comes racing in, dives underneath, that's the last 5 minutes, the exciting part, but it might take an hour, 2 hours to get there. So submarine warfare has changed a lot since World War II.
Yeah, it's also a really interesting time with the recent history of the naval war with Iran and American submarines actively sinking enemy ships again for the first time since really World War II. So it's really interesting to kind of see how this technology has changed over the decades and gotten to where we are today.
This submarine was famous. I can keep talking. Okay, this was a very sneaky submarine. The Navy knew this. They designed it this way, and they used us. This was exactly Cold War submarine, 1959 to 1990. Cold War ended about 1989. They shut this submarine and its 2 sister ships down. No use for us anymore. But when they had use for us, we were very useful. This was the world's quietest submarine. We snuck in and out of places we're not supposed to tell you about, okay? And when we did, we often took these guys called Navy SEALs. They were called something else back then, I think underwater demolition or something like that. But starting in 1959, 1960, the SEALs would come down here, sleep up there. We never put any torpedoes up there. We put mattresses up there. It makes a pretty good place to sleep. These guys slept in here. They kept their scuba gear here on this floor. The submarine would go up next to somebody else's shoreline. We would hover 50 feet underwater, 50 feet down, quietly, and just hover there. These guys would get out of bed, put on their scuba gear, go up that ladder, out that forward escape trunk, out to the outside world, swim away, be gone a day or 2, turn around and swim back again, reverse the process, come down that hatch, down, we'd turn around and leave. We did that for 20 years. That was when I tell you about that Battle E outside. This is where the guys slept. And there's the escape trunk that the SEALs used to leave the submarine. They did that on this submarine and on our two sister ships, 580 Barbell, 582 Bonefish. Bonefish, everybody says, how do you have any record of this? And I go, no. However, Bonefish, which was an Atlantic submarine, was the first one to put American military on board the island of Grenada. Back, I don't know, 1980 something. Ronald Reagan said we have to defend the medical students on Grenada. They're being mistreated. And we went in with a military effort to save the medical students on Grenada. The very first American warrior onto that island came off of the submarine Bonefish out of that hatch.
Yeah, that's remarkable. The history of these submarines is really incredible.
Yeah. This one was a very, very quiet, sneaky submarine. Now they're all almost as quiet as this, but they're faster, much longer range. This thing was used in its last few years, from 87 to 90 or so, as a target practice. Can you sneak up on these guys? So we didn't do much in the open ocean. Not me. I wasn't on this thing, but the guys that were on this submarine say they were used mostly for target practice. They'd try and sneak up.
So this was even quieter than the nuclear submarines that came out.
The new submarines coming out now, they're doing everything they can to make those things very, very, very quiet. But you absolutely cannot beat a battery-operated submarine. It just, like I said, doesn't make any noise. And they want to go ultra quiet around here. They tell everybody that's not on watch, get in your bunk, lay there, be quiet. If you're on watch, take your shoes off, walk around in your socks. So very, very quiet down here. You really can sit on this thing and hear the shrimp outside going click, click, click. And they don't make much noise.
Right.
So, okay. Would you like to see where the sailors themselves sleep on this submarine?
For sure. Yes.
Follow me. You might want to just get some roll of the showers. There's 2 showers in there. I'm going to tell you some things about the showers here, coming up. We're about to walk through the chief's quarters. These are the old guys on board the submarine. 6 bunks in here.
How large was the crew for the whole sub?
85, 77 enlisted, 8 officers, anywhere from 6 to 8 chief petty officers. We got a snoring guy in here. That's just a sound recording. But you can always tell the chief's quarters on any naval vessel at all. They get their own coffee pot.
Very important.
Very important. This wall didn't used to be here. I mean, it used to be here and now it isn't. And now we are in the crew's quarters for the enlisted guys. We have a sample bunk here to show you where the enlisted guys stored their personal goods. Everything you took to sea with you, and it might be for a 90-day trip. 90 days were fairly common on this thing. It all had to fit under a bunk. The only time it didn't have to fit under a bunk is if you're hot bunking, 2 guys sharing the same bunk. In that case, you only got half. This submarine allowed smoking on board. All submarines did back then. Submarine I was on, smoked, everybody. When you go out, you have to supply your own cigarettes. There's no sea stores out there. And I've seen guys that had like 11 cartons down here that hardly had room for your shower sandals. But by God, they had their cigarettes. Come on back. This is crew's berthing on the submarine. We had 66 bunk beds down here for 77 sailors. You could be 6'8", and you were still welcome on this submarine. Modern submarines, same thing, 6'8". The bunk beds themselves are only 6'2" long. So if you're taller than that and you want to sleep on one of these bunks, we recommend the fetal position, okay? And people say, I couldn't possibly sleep on one of these bunks down here. And we say, if you've been awake for 3 days, it's easy to sleep on a bunk bed down here. And it did happen all the time. If you were an enlisted guy, you got your own bunk if you were high enough up in the ratings, E4, E5, E6, something like that. 66 guys, some of them had to hot bunk. The way you hot bunk down here is one guy, everybody sleeps for 6 hours on the boat. So you get a bunk bed here. Now these were much nicer back in the day. Everybody had a sheet and a mattress cover and a pillow and a pillowcase and a curtain that went up and down the front. You had the merest little bit of privacy down here. You got a chance to sleep for 6 hours. You had a light down at one end. You could sit there and read your books. I guess I turned that out again, doggone it. Anyway, but when you had the chance, you slept. You only got to sleep for 6 hours. And at the end of 6 hours, people come in here and they'd say, hey, buddy, get up, put your pants on, go to work. Well, you're inside there. You get out of bed, you lift up, you get your uniform out, you get dressed, you go to work. If you're sharing this thing, somebody's going to wait for you to leave, give you another minute or two, and then they are going to come in here and lay down in your bunk bed, and they're going to sleep in your bunk bed for the next 6 hours. You're off doing something on the submarine, so that's how you share a bunk bed on this submarine. We didn't have a lot of fresh water on this submarine. This is a battery-operated submarine, so where you are standing, right underneath us, is 300 tons of lead-acid batteries. These batteries go from that front wall up there to that back wall back there on the other side, and they're about 3 feet underneath us right here. I'm going to take you out of here and show you a window we put in here so you can see the batteries. But these are 1959's highest battery technology, lead acid. If your granddad had a 61 Ford pickup with corroded battery terminals, that's the technology that we have in this submarine, 300 tons of them. When they are all charged up, that's fine. When they start going down, we have to recharge them, but they only work at all if you keep putting double distilled water in them. We have big distillation plants in the back of the submarine, and we double distilled that water back there, and we made a lot of it. I think it was 2,000 gallons a day. But 2,000 gallons a day is almost exactly what the batteries required. And the Navy was very clear about this. They said, you fill those batteries up every day. Those batteries come first. If there's any water left over, you can use it for yourselves. Well, we made sure there was a little bit left over. We had enough we could wash our hands, we could wash dishes, we could cook and clean, and if you saw the shower stalls in there, you got one 1-minute shower every 7 days.
Wow.
Every 7 days, that 1-minute shower, you better not use more than about 2 gallons of water. What you didn't know when you walked in that shower was somebody was going to come up and listen to you inside that shower. And if you go over 1 minute, you'll go over about 1.5 gallons of water. Somebody's going to bang on the outside of your shower door and go, hey, water buffalo, cut it out in there. You know what? Scared the heck out of you. You get in serious trouble down here by wasting water. There was no laundry on this submarine. There's no washing machine, no dryer, no washing your socks out in the sink. You would bring about 6 uniforms down here, whatever would fit in the space you had left underneath that mattress, and every day you'd get up and put on your cleanest dirty clothes until frankly you couldn't tell the difference. I've heard of people down here that just wore the same clothes for 90 days. You're not washing yourself except just a little bit every 7 days. You're never washing your clothes. And by the time we got back in again, we didn't smell good. That was this submarine, that's all the other American submarines. Even these days when you have lots and lots of fresh water and you take all the showers you want, there's laundries on all, you still coming off those submarines smelling like submarine. So we would pull in and head up the river. Coming back to home base, we'd open the hatch, take a big breath of fresh air, and go, fresh, what? It smells horrible. What do we do? Well, it wasn't them. It was us. This happened on every American submarine, and yet every person, every man, every woman who ever came on an American submarine volunteered. There must have been something nice about submarines. There must be something nice right now. Otherwise, why would you want to volunteer for this? So I'm going to take you out of here. We're going to a place called Crew's Mess. I'm going to start talking about food on submarines. And I can tell you, when I get done talking about food on this submarine, I've had people raise their hand and say, how can I get in the Navy? Okay? Yeah. So I'll show you.
Sounds good.
Right now? Ready?
Yes.
Okay, follow me. I don't know if you're going to be interested in this, but we put a window in the floor right around the corner so you can look down and see the batteries. There's our big batteries. And we tell all the little kids that after we did that, a battery bunny snuck in there. Keep your eyes out for the battery bunny.
Will do.
Here
yes.
we go.
Looks like that's what's keeping everything running. I like it.
Yeah.
Now, the battery's something that the crew would have interacted with or had to maintain much when the submarine was out at sea, or is that pretty much something that
we
just
knew
was
all
under the
about
floor?
it. There was battery technicians, electricians made, people who were in charge of the battery. But that is old technology, and new modern submarines don't have those big battery banks. There was all kinds of stuff. For instance, here's one way to start checking cells. There are 504 cells. Each one of those cells looks like that right there. And we could, even though they're underneath us, they're still mounted down there, we have to check their health of each one of them. So some guy up here with a voltometer and is going to go around and go click, 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 click through 504 cells.
Wow.
There's also somebody that has to put on a rubber suit, go down through that hatch. Those two hatches right there lead to the batteries. Go down there with a kind of a water hose like you put on at the gas station that goes click and water comes out, and go through all 500 cells and put water in it up to the line. That's what we do with all the fresh water on this submarine. And if you don't do that, they don't work. Mm-hmm. So kind of get yelled at. Have a seat. So this submarine had a total crew of 85, 77 enlisted guys. Are you happy with your shot there? Okay. The 77 enlisted guys, they worked elsewhere, they slept in there, but this was their favorite part of the whole submarine. Anytime you're not on watch, you're not working, you can come down here, the lights are always on, the coffee pot's always making coffee, and there's always a good cook in that galley making your next meal. This submarine served 4 meals a day. Breakfast at 6 a.m., dinner at noon, supper at 6 p.m., midnight rations or midrats at midnight. Every one of those gets its own cook. These were very good cooks and highly respected, well liked on this submarine. The Navy spent more money on our food, submarine sailors' food, than any other military spends anywhere in the world. I get guys down here who fly jets off aircraft carriers, and they said the best food we ever saw was on a submarine. And the Navy's doing that on purpose. There's just not a lot of nice things to do on it. We go out for 90 days. We never hear from the wife and kids. We don't get much in the way of world news except just headlines, and there's nothing we can do about it. When they close that hatch up there, I showed you that hatch, people look up at it and they go, oh no, because they know it's going to be 90 days until somebody opens that hatch again. Somebody could die on this submarine and we do not go home. We put them in a bag, put them in the freezer, and stay on station. So the only way to get out of here is put in your 90 days, be a good sailor, don't do anything wrong, and at the end of 90 days we'll make it up to you. But down here, this food is what keeps everybody relatively happy on board. Very good food. This is breakfast. You can have anything for breakfast that can be made on a flat top griddle. I'm going to use the word "and" here. Here's what you can order for breakfast. First, you come over and get yourself a cup of coffee. And then you come over here and you say, "Hey buddy, here's what I want. I want pancakes and French toast and scrambled eggs and cheese omelet, ham, bacon, sausage, and hash browns." "Yes, please." There's 2 waffle irons going back there. "I'd like a waffle. And if at the end of that you're still a little bit hungry, we'll make you some oatmeal." The only breakfast you can't have on this submarine is milk and cereal. We used up this milk about 6 days out. Six hours after breakfast, you come down, there is a dinner cook in there ready to make the noonday meal. Here's the noonday meal down here, October 1970. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes and gravy, broccoli, dinner rolls, garden salad, cake and ice cream. The Navy doesn't think it's a good meal unless it ends in dessert.
Absolutely, that's my philosophy.
Here's you come down here 6 hours later, there's another cook, the supper cook. He's going to make you, that night it was ham, sweet potatoes, raisin sauce, and spinach. And then everybody gets an ice cream sundae. If you get up in the middle of the night, it's midnight. There's a guy up here who's making soup and sandwiches. Best soup and sandwiches you ever had. And then that cook, the overnight cook, stays up and makes pies and cakes and pastries and cinnamon rolls. And you get up in the next morning and it smells really good down here. These were very well-respected cooks. I've heard one of the re-enlistment bonuses for these guys is, would you like to go to a fancy cooking school? 6 weeks of cooking school? How about that? If you sign up. So I understand that was often handed out there.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Like you said, you know, it makes you want to sign up.
Yeah, well, they would like you to re-enlist is what they'd like to do. Yeah, we'd like you to stay on. The meals down here, especially like on Friday night. I told you they spent a lot of money. Friday night down here was ribeye steak night. That same griddle that was making pancakes in the morning is making ribeyes at night. They come out on a big platter and they just go round and round and round. And incidentally, this is the same food as the officers get. In the old days, we could open up this door and there was a dumbwaiter, a little elevator that take the food up. So it comes out of here, goes up to the officers, and it's exactly the same food. On all submarines, I think. Very good food. They get it up there, we get it down here. So Friday night, steak, baked potato, sour cream, grilled mushrooms, and then ice cream for dessert. That's pretty good. Saturday night, you come down, you say, well, it's going to be Saturday night, it's going to be even more wonderful, and it's not. You come down and this table is full of pizza, and that table's full of pizza, and that pizza, and there's a table there full of pizza, and that's all you get on Saturday night is pizza. You better like pizza. Once you're done eating pizza, we make popcorn and we start showing movies.
Oh.
There's the movie technology back there. Here's a movie projector from those days. I'm talking, you know, 60s and 70s here. Somebody actually had to know how to run that projector. We've got TVs and VHSs and things like that, but those all came on in the 70s. This submarine was in service until 1990. So something like a microwave oven that didn't exist in 1969 is on here now. So here we are Saturday night, it's time for the movies. We start showing movies. Now we only had enough room to bring down 10 or 15 movies. They're big boxy things and we're a little teeny tiny submarine. We would show a movie. We found out that the submarine sailors like shoot 'em up bang bang movies. They like driving cars too fast movies. But in 1965, they went over and they picked out a brand new movie right out of Hollywood, and it turned out to be the best movie ever if you're a subsailor. The Sound of Music.
Oh.
Julie Andrews spinning around and around in a Swiss meadow. If you're 2,000 miles from home and 200 feet underwater, it's exactly the movie you want to watch, okay? We watched it so often we could eventually turn the sound all the way down and everybody could sing every song in the movie. The three most important machines on this submarine are right here in crew's mess. I always tell everybody on the tour, Don't tell the officers I said this, because they're going to think things like periscopes and torpedo tubes and diesel engines are important. But here's one of the most important machines on the whole submarine. I've heard of submarines that didn't go to sea because the coffee machine was broke, okay? Here's another important machine. This is called bug juice. You're not allowed to call it Kool-Aid if you're in the Navy, okay? You have to call it bug juice, because we take Kool-Aid and we put a lot of vitamins in it. You're going to go underwater outside, you can't see any sunlight, for 90 days. We put vitamin D in there and vitamin K. Doc fills the stuff up with all kinds of noxious vitamins, and then they put sugar in there until you almost can't stand up. You're actually supposed to drink some of this from time to time to keep you healthy underwater. But absolutely the most important machine on this submarine is that one right there. It's got a white handle on a brown box. And I ask people, what's that good for? And sometimes they don't know. But a lot of people say, ice cream, and that's actually true. That is the soft serve vanilla ice cream. We load it up as soon as we go out in the open ocean. We open a squeeze bottle. There's a squeeze bottle of chocolate syrup there. There's sprinkles, there's whipped cream, there's mixed nuts, and there's maraschino cherries. And all of it is all restock and restock, completely available all the time for the next 90 days. And then I turn to the crowd here sometimes and I'll say, anybody ready to join the Navy? I tell you, I get hands.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, like you said, it's those little things that can, I'm sure, make a huge difference.
Yeah. People say, how do you store the food? Would you like to hear the food storage story?
Yes, I've been wondering about that because there's a lot of ice cream and things on board, so it's got to be stored somewhere.
It's got to be stored somewhere. Well, you've seen most of the storage places so far. For one thing, there's a great big 75 cubic foot freezer here and over there. And when we go out in the open ocean, those are stored so tightly you can open the door and there's the frozen goods right there. You close the door. The things you want better be in that first tier, okay? And we store that thing completely full of freezer goods. Everything else we store, you were up in the torpedo room. It's a little cooler up there. We keep it about 65 degrees. That's a good place for oranges and apples and bananas and butter and eggs. I told you you'd only get a shower about every 7 days in those showers. That's one of the reasons is the first 7 days we go out, those are full of potatoes and carrots and onions and eggs. The bunk bed is 6'2". If you are 5'9", there's a couple of inches of room up there, and we're going to fill that up with groceries. You're part of the solution down here. You're going to climb in bed and your feet are going to be resting on tin cans. There is food underneath these benches. These are all hollow here and in the wardroom. And this is supposed to be a ventilation duct, but when you open up, food in there. Now, everything I just showed you will give us enough food for 60 days at sea. We need for 90. We go out for 90 days. And so what we do is we bring down about 4,000 pounds of number 10 cans. These are very well packed number 10 cans. If you're the Navy and you can order, you can get some wonderful stuff in tin cans. We bring them down, and just before we sail, we park them up on the pier. We take all the labels off because we don't want paper down here. We write the contents on the end, you know, and then we bring them down one at a time and put them on the floor. We did not have this nice ladder back there. That's our addition. In the old days, right back here, there's a vertical. That goes up that hatch I showed you up there, all the way up, and every single can comes down here. By the time we have the other 4,000 pounds of cans down here, these cans are on the floor. They go from that wall to that wall, from that pressure tight door all the way up to the torpedo room. And anywhere we go on the submarine, we put a mat on these things and then we walk on them. This was expected, and this was the last 30 days worth of food out of a 90-day cruise. So for the first 60 days, you walk from the engine room forward, you're going to be walking on a layer of tin cans. We went to South America one time, Talcahuano, Chile. It was far enough away, they had to double the cans. Yeah. Everybody that walked through here went through like this. I'm 5'8", you can be 6'8", and you're welcome on a submarine. So there was some serious back problems during that trip, I'm pretty sure. We never complained about having food in cans on the floor because we knew of other submarines that did not follow this practice and ran out of food at sea. One pulled into San Diego, and for 5 days the entire crew had been eating saltine crackers and ketchup.
Oh my.
One pulled into Groton, sub base back in Connecticut. For 7 days, they had been eating instant mashed potato flakes and blue food coloring for the ice cream machine. We had a guy down here who was a tour guide. He had been on that submarine. He said the whole crew, when they pulled into Groton, they got off, they walked across the sub base and they cleaned out a McDonald's. So we never complained about food in cans on the floor on this submarine.
Makes sense.
Okay, I got one more spot to show you. We're going to go to the back of the boat and I'm going to show you how we push the submarine. How you guys doing?
Excellent. This is amazing. Yes. Thank you for your time here.
I could do this for another 45 minutes. Are you okay with that?
Sounds good.
Okay. You're not, these new digital cameras are cheap to run, right? We're going to go out of here. We're going to go through the engine room. I might have told you we have these big diesel engines back here that we run to make electricity. And whenever I've got a little kid in the crowd or kids, I always say, see if you could find 3 diesel engines, okay? They're 14 feet long and painted green. You ready?
Yeah.
Follow me.
Gets very loud back here.
Could be worse. This is about 1/3 to 1/2 of what it is in real life. This is our engine room. 3 big diesel engines back here. Engine number 1, these are 2-stroke diesels. I don't know if you know your diesels, but a 2-stroke diesel is a very rare thing. Number 3, engine over there. And halfway in between, like it says here, engine number 2. These diesels are only used when we can get up far enough out of the water to stick up an induction mast. We absolutely can't run them if we can't breathe outside air. So, come on back, I'll show you where we maneuver the submarine back here. Incidentally, there's the freshwater stills I was telling you about. As you can see, there's 2 of them. And so there are times when one goes down. That is a very persnickety machine. And sometimes you'd have one still running instead of 2, and then there was no spare water of any kind. You were hoping and praying they'd get the stills back online again. There's the aft escape trunk. We use that in port to bring down heavy parts for the engine room. There's never any time at sea when you would run people up and down in that if you're actually out in the open ocean. Welcome to maneuvering. Whenever this submarine was out in the ocean, there was only 3 people back here. And you tell somebody on a modern nuclear submarine, there's only 3 people and 0 officers back here, it's almost impossible to believe. All the nuclear boats I ever saw had an engineering officer of the watch and probably 2 or 3 other trainees out there. But on this one, there's a battery operator, there's a diesel engine operator, and over here's the main guy who controls the speed of the submarine. And actually, this is the most highly trained, the most dangerous spot down here, because this is how you make the submarine go forward. That's sort of like the gas pedal, faster and slower. And this is the drive. This is make the submarine go forward, D, R. You go backwards this way. And I heard about a submarine one time that was doing an emergency backing, and there's no way of knowing the speed of the submarine. You kind of have to feel it, and this guy went back too hard, and when the submarine starts going backwards, it gets erratic. The controls are only made to go forward. And there was an admiral sitting here, Admiral Rickover, and he turned, they were backing down on another submarine, and he turned to one of the junior officers there and he said, "You're about to lose this submarine." And he said it in a very calm fashion, but when Admiral Rickover tells you you're about to die, things swung into action and they stopped and made the submarine go forward again. So there's stories about these things. 3 people back here. This guy is the battery operator. He's looking, all those dials are connected to the batteries, where the bunny was. We are a battery operated submarine, so it'd be a really good idea if we knew somebody who knows how the batteries are actually doing. And this guy can look up here and say, oh, they're all charged up, which is wonderful. Or it might be a day later and they're starting to go down, or it's 2 days later and he says, uh-oh, the batteries are about out. When that happens, he'd turn to this one guy standing here and he'd say, "Commence snorkeling." Well, this guy was supposed to run diesel number 1. That's that big green thing out there. You have exactly the same panel to run diesel number 2, the one under the panel there, under the floor. Diesel number 3, the one on the far wall. Now, would you like to help run our submarine for us?
For sure.
I'd be glad to show you here. We're going to leave diesel number 1 alone. We can hear it going bump, bump, bump out there. Just leave it alone. I'm going to show you how to start diesel number 2. You're going to start the one under the floor. And by the way, I'd like you to use the same instructions to start diesel number 3. See, they're similar. I'm going to tell you how to do 2. You do 2 and 3.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. This guy says, "Commence snorkeling." And your first move, space drain down. Very good. Fuel oil priming, up. Engine run, up. And now push down on starting air. Push that black button down and hold it. You are using 1,000-pound air to start these big diesels. These are 1,500 horsepower diesel engines. When it gets to 400, let go. You hear that?
Yeah.
Well, you just caused a huge problem out there. You started 2 diesel engines. This room out here is on its way to 125 degrees. You did this.
I was afraid something was going to go wrong.
Yeah. We have to shut and lock that door. Bring it and shut it tight because it's 125 out there. We don't like 125 in here. It is also so loud out there that if you want to go out there, first you have to put in rubber earplugs, then you have to wear Mickey Mouse ears. Do those 2 things and you can walk around out there safely. Forget even one of those devices, you got about 10 minutes and then you lose your hearing forever. It's loud. You are now the hardest working person on this submarine. You've got 2 diesel engines going, but they're 40 feet underwater. That's us, that's you right there, okay? We have to breathe in air from outside. Somebody's got to open the induction valve. There's a great big induction valve up there. That's shut. Can you get it open? There's a trick. Pull it out.
Oh,
you got it? Okay. Same way with the exhaust. Black smoke is pouring out of these things. There's an exhaust valve up there. Let's see you do that 3 times, okay? I want to see red, red, red. Yes.
I'm feeling really well trained.
Nice going. Okay, the rest of the time you're down here, you're watching water temperature for the diesels, you're watching oil temperature, you're watching oil pressure. Over here's the bilge alarms. They go off when water starts coming in from the outside. If we get a bilge alarm when this is going on, it's a huge problem, and it's probably because you screwed up. You're gonna hear wah, bilge alarm, and it's probably your fault, okay? So you, for 4 hours, are the hardest working guy down here. Finally, at the end of 4 hours, this guy who's just been basically watching you squirm, he's gonna say, batteries are all charged up, secure snorkeling. And you do this. Engine run down. Fuel oil priming down. Space drain up. Did you get a red light?
I did on both of them.
Did that noise stop?
It has now, yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
We could use you in the submarine fleet.
There's a lot of responsibility here.
It actually is.
Yeah.
There's, let me show you something here. We always say, everybody, that when the bilge alarm goes off, it's designed for people who are dead in the next compartment to wake up and save everybody, okay? You want to hear a bilge alarm?
Yes.
Let's see if I can make this thing work here. See?
That's extremely loud.
You're not going to sleep through that one. Yeah. And we don't do this on the tour, but we have a special tour that goes all the way to the back there. You can go back about another 10 or 15 feet. There's the stern planes back there that make the planes go up and down. There's also rudder. I think you can see the rudder, big ram down there on the bottom, that thing. Rudder goes right and left. One of the big things you're always worried about on this submarine is a lack of hydraulics. The hydraulics fail. And when that happens, one of the things you have to learn on this submarine is to go back in there, stick a long lever in a handle, and actually hand pump the rudder back and forth, the fairwater planes up and down, enough to get back to the surface and save the submarine. So I took somebody back there. He straightened up and hit the top of his head so hard he needed 3 stitches.
Oh.
So I don't go back there much anymore. So would you like to see it? Would you want to go through there?
Yes.
Heavy machinery? Because we can go down this side, cross over the propeller, and come out that side. In the middle, we have 2 3,000 horsepower electric motors that actually propel this propeller. When I say electric motor, I just mean there's a whole bunch of copper wire wrapped around the propeller shaft. When it's going round and round, it makes a tremendous amount of heat. And as we go down through here, you'll be able to see the heat dissipating plates from the electric motors right here. I don't think I'm going to be able to comment on much, so we'll just make this a scenic tour.
Sounds
okay?
good. We'll be very careful with our headspace here.
I advise that. Follow me.
It's real tight in here.
It really does. Okay. I did this just the other day. I know it can be done.
Very impressive.
Propeller shaft here. motors up there, and we actually have diesel fuel tanks. All you have to do is take all the nuts off, lift them out of there, and go down and clean out the diesel fuel tanks.
Okay. You want us to follow you to that side?
As you wish.
Okay, we're doing it. Videographer John is gonna struggle a little bit with the camera, but I think you can do it here.
Come on back.
I got a big group. You guys want to head out here and talk in here?
I think so.
Okay.
That was quite the journey. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for that. That's pretty amazing to squeeze
You
through
can
there.
make that, it shows you still got it. Okay?
You were very impressive moving back there.
Oh, I'm glad. I could have made a huge mistake.
We're going to do a do-si-do here.
Follow me. We'll get over here.
Duck in there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We'll swap spots.
How many tours a day typically run on the submarine?
All right.
We do it 3 tours an hour for 8 hours, so 24. In the summer times, it's often 4 tours an hour. We get more people down here in the summer.
Sure.
Yeah. And actually, I might have told you about that tech tour we take. Those guys are allowed to go anywhere. I think I can open this up and show you the lower engine room. We actually have people that are all excited about going down there. I don't know how you feel about it, but there are people on tours who want to come down here and look down there and actually travel out there. You are in the very, very back of the submarine. I can tell you, if you know where to go and what to do, you can start out here and appear back at the very, very back, come right out of the floor. It's all connected. If you were a subsailor on here and you worked back here, you did that just as easy as jumping jacks. It was easy. Okay? Would you like to go down and see the lower engine room?
Sure.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Stand on one, lift the other one. Here we go. Are you ready?
I think so. That's a steep ladder.
Anytime you want to back out, we'll just tell this guy to stop filming and we can look good on camera.
There we go.
okay?
We can edit it out. I just follow your example, you know. If you're brave enough to do it, I'll give it a try.
You know, at least one person has done this before, me.
It gets very narrow.
It does.
just a narrow? Is this little pathway right here ever the whole space down here?
It's only half of it. There's a similar space on the other side. Now, I was told that you can go from here and come up back by the shaft back there, but I'm looking at it and I don't see it. And I'm not sure how you do it. I can tell you that these diesel engines are wonderful diesel engines, even though we put them in here in 1959. I get people off cargo boats and commercial fishing boats that come down and say, we have exactly this same diesel engine on our surface ship. These are made to be repairable at sea. They're opposed piston, 8-cylinder, just 8 pistons but 4 cylinders. And we actually carried spare parts out here to just about hand rebuild a whole diesel engine at sea if we needed to. Cylinders, liners, sleeves, all kinds of stuff you needed. And even more important than that, we have 3 of them and we can get by with 1. So if 1 breaks, we're down to 2. We might start getting nervous, but the chances of having 2 different diesel engines out of 3 go bad was not statistically significant. Okay?
So yeah, the submarines had to be very self-sufficient.
Very. Yeah, there's you can't even pick up groceries out there. You just go out and 90 days, the only reason you come back is, well, I can't think of a good reason. You stay out there for 90 days. Okay, I'm kind of surprised. I thought there was another way out of here, and I don't see it. So what I'm going to do is depart. I promise not to lock you guys in. Okay?
Thank you. We
You
appreciate
ready?
that.
Here we go.
This definitely feels like maybe the most claustrophobic I've been this whole.
If you start to get claustrophobic, let me know.
I feel fine. It just feels, yeah, definitely very tight down here. There's certain limitations to how far
They let the prisoners out.
Aren't you supposed to be able to get around to the other side from this side?
I don't think there's a hatch on the other side. It said the engine's in the way.
Yeah, but you can come out the back.
We come out back there. Yeah, I thought
But
you meant over on this
this one, it's blocked in at both ends. There's no way to get around. Let's come on over here.
side. Over here again. Hatch that we got every way.
We'll let these guys go by. Yeah. So, I learned about the submarine today. We actually have a simulator down here to tell you what it sounded like. This is the actual sound of the submarine, but the real sound of the submarine is about this big, okay?
It's very intense.
We don't run it at that altitude here. We just do this so you guys can see what it's like, okay? Anybody ready to volunteer for submarines? Volunteer for submarines?
So you always got to be recruiting. That's very important.
That's right. We had a prairie masker system on this submarine. It was an experimental program they had back in the 50s. If you have a wall of bubbles coming up, it is a sound barrier. You can make noise over here and you can't hear the noise over here through the bubbles. So what they did on this submarine and 2 or 3 other submarines is they just ran a big line of pipes around the outside with microscopic holes in them. Some are wrapped around the propellers because the propeller is the great noise producer on a submarine. And so when you go through the water, the propeller is turning, but it is inside a hollow tunnel made of nothing but bubbles, prairie masker. And so the prairie masker bubble air generation machinery is up in front of us up there. And I'm not going to go up there because that is truly a little teeny tiny area up there. But some was around the propeller, some was around the hull of the ship. And so the great majority of the ship would be traveling inside a hollow tunnel of bubbles. You can see this, I probably won't be with you, but as you walk out of here, there is a big propeller up on the dry land up there. That's a war memorial, submarine memorial. There's a brick in the ground around that propeller, one brick for every American submarine that went out and didn't come back. It's got a name and it's got the date lost. And I've been through there, and there's 3 bricks up there with the same date in 1944. I can't imagine losing 3 submarines on the same day. If you want to look at the prairie masker modification to that propeller, go up to the edge of the propeller, the outer edge, and look, and there's little teeny tiny dots all the way up and down there. The machinery in here forced air back to the propeller and expelled that air and made the prairie masker system. They did it on this submarine, a few other submarines, and then they gave it up. It was just too much trouble for the amount of value that you got out of it. Okay, and believe me, at least the machinist mates and the people back here had to know everything. You had to know what every valve does. What a blue valve is different than a green valve. Where's a green valve? Seawater, blue valve is something else. I don't know, lubrication oil or something. They would know all of that stuff back here. Not only would they know what it was, but if it broke, they knew how to fix it. And we had all the spare parts on board to fix all these things. So everywhere you look around here, if you're back here qualifying, you're a subsailor, and somebody says, well, you're going to be working in the engine room, I want you to show me everything I need to know about the lubrication system. Oh my God, power supplies, valves, overrides, runarounds. What do you do? How much pressure does it have? How much can you go over pressure? What happens when you don't have enough pressure? Everything you need, and they're just talking about the lubrication system. And then when they start talking, well, you finally passed that one, sign it off, and then we'll start talking about cold water intakes around here. What do you do? How do you cool the engines? We're water cooled down here. There's a big system. And believe, when you bring water in to cool the engines, you run the risk of leaks. This is the kind of stuff that begins to leak, and when it does, it goes bad very, very quickly. So, especially back here in the engine room, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong and hurt or kill your submarine. And so these guys especially were worked very, very hard on qualification.
Absolutely.
Well, that's about it.
Fantastic.
Any more questions?
Let's head back outside and we can wrap
Outside?
up then. Yeah.
Okay. You can see the hull here where we cut through. I said the outer hull is thinner, it's only 3/4 of an inch. Inner hull is 1.5 inches, and in between right here was where the fuel tanks were, and we could, this is one of the fuel tanks. We had a total of 112,000 gallons of fuel.
thank you for the incredible tour here today. This has been so fascinating, and I really appreciate all the time that you've spent with us here. Yeah, these tours are really, really incredible.
Well, you're more than welcome. Glad to have you down here. We'd like having people come down to visit, so anything you can do to recommend us or tell people about us, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. So for people who want to learn more about the submarine and just kind of follow what you guys are doing at the museum and with the submarine, where are you kind of most active online? What's the best place for people to check the submarine out online and get more info?
I don't have a good answer to that because we do not have a web presence. About the only thing you can do is go to omsi.org and buy a ticket.
So it's through the museum then is just the easiest way, yeah.
Through the museum.
Okay. Yeah.
And you buy tickets, and we're open every day except some Mondays in the middle of the winter. All summer it's 7 days a week, and from about 10 in the morning to 5:30 at night.
Okay.
We'd like to have as many people as we can.
Absolutely. For everyone who's watched the tour, we really appreciate you following along, and I hope you've learned a lot. I know I certainly have. And we'll have a link to the OMSI website in the description of this video, so that way you can go there, find more info about the submarine, and buy the tickets. And yeah, if you're ever in the Portland area, highly recommend going through the submarine here. It's a really fascinating trip to see the decades of technology and just the history of this submarine is really incredible. So thank you so much, John. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for coming down.